I'm the mod on that. So if if a bot or a troll or something shows up, I need to be able to boot them. So I'm just kind of keeping an eye out to see if it's going. And now we are going. I know for sure
now
we
it's
are going.
'cause
So yeah,
I did the thing correctly.
The topic I thought would be for the two of us to take a trip down memory lane, and in some cases those memories are very recent. To just talk about like some of the strange stuff, the funny, weird stuff, the sometimes scary stuff, and worrisome stuff you can run into sometimes as an RPG designer when you're going through the process of designing or producing. So
let's start off with you, because there's a issue that you really been going through right now.
And what, but I don't know how much do you want to know about how the sausage is made? How deep do we want to go?
Well, I mean, I know how the sausage is made, but I think that we should go into it for the viewers, if nothing else.
Okay, without naming companies or people involved, I will say this: it was my fault. Okay, it was my fault.
We will name one person. His name is Craig.
Yes. Well, basically, the situation is Good Strong Hands is going to print. The PDF is out. Backers have it. There's a quick start that's up, available on DriveThruRPG as of this week. So if you want to kind of get a glimpse of what it looks like, you can see that. But the book itself, the physical book, is being dealt with. And that's happening in two different ways. One, there's a print-on-demand version that I'm in the process of kind of getting proofed. That'll be available through DriveThruRPG. And then there's an offset print run that is going to be done with an actual print house, from a printing press, actual print house. Okay. And that's creating two different kinds of books. They're all the same interior, but there's the regular cover, and then there's a special cover for the people that wanted the fancy schmancy leatherette, nice. Kind of alternate cover design, and it'll be signed.
A lot of those?
I sold like 60 or so.
Hey,
I'm getting 80 printed, so I'm going to have a handful left over that I'll use as giveaways.
There you go.
That's all happening. So I got my proofs for the printer a while back, and what happens with the proofs is you get, because they don't print the book for you, you get printout pages of the proof of what the thing's going to look like. And you get two different types of proofs. One that is the entire book, front to back, page printed on both sides, and it shows every page, so you can look at everything. You can see, okay, is everything laid out correctly? Is everything, did some goof happen? This is your last chance to find, like, oh, there's a page number missing, or the header's wrong, or whatever. And then you also get printed a handful of pages that are just sampled from different pages, some with text, some with tables, some with art, so forth, that is printed on a special printer. And this is how it works with this particular printer, this print house. They print it on a special printer that is specifically geared to, like, what you see is going to be nearly exactly the color of what you're going to see on the page when it's printed on the printing press. It's going to be very close. And they use that set of proofs to calibrate the printing press to make sure that this is what we're producing. We're producing this thing right here that you see in this proof.
Okay.
And when I got my proofs, I paid more attention to the full set front to back and was looking at the color of all of that sort of thing, and approved everything. Now, flash back a little bit before that, I'm sending everything off to print on demand with DriveThruRPG. And right now, as Eloy, I'm sure you know, DriveThruRPG stuff, color books are taking like a month.
Yeah,
3 to 4 weeks to print plus shipping time. Now I'm doing 2-day air shipping because I don't want to sit and wait an extra week on top of the 3 to 4. So I sent the files off, got them approved, ordered a hardcover and a soft cover, and ordered the print proof. So I send in that a little bit beforehand. So I've got 2 sets of proofs. One that's like on its way, from the print on demand, and one that I've looked at for the offset print run. Now, there's a third thing that happens in the middle of this. I get into a discussion with a company, with a game company out there that function that has like a side business as a consolidator, where they will help to get your games into distribution with distributors and retailers and so forth. And so they function as a consolidator. Without getting into all the details, a consolidator is basically a distributor. They're remove step, technically 2 steps, but like a step removed from the retailer. So like I sell to them, they sell to somebody else,
right?
And they help to get it out there. Now, I firm up everything with that. That's going to happen. My print proofs for the offset print run are approved, and I've increased my order because I'm going to be able to sell more books because I've got this deal going through.
Right.
While now that the gears are in motion with all of that, I get into a discussion, finalizing things with the distribution consolidation arm of this company and the person who really knows this business. And they say, well, like your Capers book has been with another consolidator, and they were going to be taking some Capers copies as well. And we can't sell, like 2 consolidators can't sell the same stuff because they're going to be selling to the same outlets. You're going to be trying to put it with all the same distributors.
Right.
So all of a sudden, this whole deal with this other distribution thing and the increased order that I made is jeopardized. And it ultimately comes to be that's dead. That's not gonna happen, because I've also got good strong hands information, including the cover and the description of the book and everything, in with this other consolidator. They've already had it for a month. They're taking orders,
right,
in preparation for when it's published. So they've already got, who knows, tens, dozens, 20s of distributors and retailers ready to buy some copies.
Yeah.
So this other thing dies. So all of a sudden, I don't need as many books. So I contact the print house. I'd like to reduce my print order. Can I do that? Sure. We haven't printed all the pages yet. So I reduced my print order. Almost immediately after that happens. So I just reduced my print order. Everything's still gears in motion right there. Almost immediately after that happens, I get my print on demand hardcover and softcover. Now, Eloy, what can you tell me about gray? About how gray can print? This is maybe a loaded question. Maybe you don't know the answer I'm going after. But there's cool and there's warm.
Yes, yeah.
There's grays that look a little more blue.
Yeah.
And there's grays that look a little more like beigey and red.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Cool versus warm. It can be like a more cream color. It can be a little more bluish.
Okay.
And different printers print different things on different types of paper. So even though the thing that I'm looking at on the screen looks one way, I can send it to this color printer over here and it will look one way. And I can send it to that color printer over there and it will look different.
Right.
Now I get my print on demand books back and it's too cool. It's too blue. This is a fairy tale game book. It needs to be not bright, but like warm.
Right.
So I get my graphic designer working on, we're going to do a new set of proofs. We're going to warm up the page background. The big problem was like the page background is like this parchmenty kind of beigey cream, right. That looks like like an old piece of parchment. And it's coming out too blue. It's too cool. It makes the whole book, the whole feel of the book feel cooler.
Right.
So graphic designer starts fixing all of that. I start thinking, this gray thing, is this going to be a problem with the offset print run? Because I don't get a second try.
Right.
With the print run. So I contact them. And they informed me that, what did I look at? What did I see when I looked at those handful of pages that have the colors just exactly right? And I'm at work when this email conversation is happening. I don't have my proofs with me.
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, I thought they were fine. I'll check when I get home. And so I get home and I look at them and I'm like, crap, they're a little on the blue side. I want the whole set of back-to-back, everything, the whole book, that printer printed everything a little more warmly. The ones that are going to be like, this is what the book is going to look like, are a little too cool. Now, it's after work hours. I don't know. And my printer rep, although she's emailing with me, can't tell me. Have they started to plate the books? And for people who want to know what that is, that's when you print books on a printing press, every page gets printed with 4 different plates, one for each of the colors, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And so there's 6 plates for each page. And it's like for the 6x9 book I'm doing, it's 32 pages on a plate. So it's 4.5 plates for 144 pages. And making those plates 4 different colors for all of the pages costs money. And then if they've finished the plates and they've started printing paper, that costs money. And at this point, I'm going to bed that night. I have no idea. For all I know, they've printed the entire book, the entire run, because I've been sitting. My reduced order went in, so it's less pages to print, so they can print them faster. I get in contact. So I have a hard time getting to sleep that night, because I'm like, if the book goes through like this, it's okay. It's all still there. It's not going to quite look the way I want it to look, but this is kind of, for me in my head, this is my like a premium product. This is like a thing that I don't know that I'm ever going to make a book this pretty ever again.
Right. It's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. So I'm worried that it's not going to be the warm look that I want it to be. If it has to go out that way, they're okay, fine. Or do I spend the money to replate and reprint whatever they need to? So I don't know. Yeah. So the next morning, my printer rep gets in touch with me and says, okay, I just found out they haven't printed anything. I'm like, okay, perfect. They haven't printed any pages, but they might have plated everything, which means that, okay, maybe I have to pay for replating. That's going to be a 4-digit expenditure, but I have to wait because she has to get in touch with the person on the floor that's going to go and find out whether they plated.
Oh gosh.
So I wait some more. Finally, she gets back to me and says they haven't plated the pages yet. Nothing's been done except the pre-press that was done to get me the print proofs.
Oh, good.
Now,
good.
Why did I get my butt saved on all of this? If that distribution thing that I had planned that knocked my order down and caused multiple days of delay earlier hadn't happened, the entire process might have been further along when I got the print on demand books and started thinking about the blueness of the gray, and that all of that plating and printing might have been done.
Yeah.
So losing that distribution outlet and having to delay for multiple days while I hammer out whether that can work or not, and having it ultimately not work out and reducing, and because I put my order on hold for a while, ultimately that delay probably saved me thousands of dollars.
Wow.
So,
I mean, happy accidents, right?
So now I have, I just ordered new print proofs for hardcover and softcover with the modified pages with warmer colors. And I'm going to be getting, the graphic designer is going to get me a modified file for the interiors for the offset file, for the interior file, which are 2 different things, print on demand and offset, because it's, again, 2 different printers, and 2 different methods of printing. So that I'll be submitting and doing new proofs next week. And if all goes well, all I'll have to do is go through and pay for the pre-press process and printing of proofs one time. Additionally, rather than spending thousands of dollars more if I wanted to fix the whole thing.
Well, I mean, I think first off, like, I applaud you for caring about the shade of gray. I would say not everybody would be that dedicated to the presentation of their book. So, that's great of you, that you care that much about, the artistic part of it, not just the game part, but also the artistic part. It's, it's a piece of art to you. So, I don't know if I would have cared.
My words are perfectly readable in either version. but the graphic design that is really gorgeous and the artwork
Yeah.
that is spectacular are going to be served better by a warmer presentation to the book with more parchmenty kind of beigey creamy colors,
Right.
as opposed to like cool, and don't get me wrong, there was a part of me that was thinking, well, this is a fairy tale book, but it's about the fairy tale world that's kind of like you're fighting to keep it from dying. So like, could it be like darker and dour and like, is that really thematically off? Like, like visually,
I could make it thematic, it'd be like,
visually, it could be interesting.
How much money is this going to cost me? Psh, I'll change the themes. It's all good.
Yeah, but that would require change. If you, I'd be changing how I sell it because the words are written, the proofs are done.
Exactly.
Like, and I even had the graphic designer bring up the idea. Well, what about doing some of the? Because like in the book, you'll find that when you read the book, the chapter title graphics start with more leaves in the first chapter, like more leaves and more green and branches and all this kind of really, really nice, wonderful nature. And then when you get to the next chapter, there's a little less, and some of the leaves are browning. And when you get to the next one, there's even less as the void continues to destroy the book chapter by chapter.
Like that.
And then when you get to the end, it's all green back up with the assumption that, the character saved the world.
You saved the world, right?
Yeah. So it restores itself, but we didn't take it. The graphic designer suggested, well, like, if we got to redo stuff, like what about doing that color shift kind of stuff with the pages and having different chapters have different cool and warm values to them? And I was like, that's like, that's a little much. I decided to shoot that down. I was like, no, let's just get this the way. And I spent time that night when I knew that I couldn't figure out anything. I sat down and was like, okay, how much am I willing to spend?
Yeah.
To fix this? Like, where's the line? And I'm sitting here thinking about, okay, I just did a little Kickstarter that I'm going to make a little money off of. And supposedly I have a stimulus check coming toward me that like, where's, where do I feel comfortable with? But I'm also hoping to buy a condo this year. So I'm not going to spend many, many thousands of dollars. I'm saving money.
Yeah.
But like, I've got kind of free money coming in the form of a stimulus check. Is like, well, yeah, I just found myself thinking about like, where's the number?
Wow.
And I knew what the number was actually, but we're not going to.
Well, no, that's fine. You don't have to share every, I know we asked for the sausage,
but that's just an example of, admittedly, it has to do with what the game looks like on screen, what it looked like in the PDF, on different monitors, what the hardcover and softcover print on demand look like, what the offset looks like via proofs, and what the book is ultimately going to look like. And that's the complexity of that you can run into when you're producing a game in multiple media.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm sure Eloy, you and me, and I'm sure other game designers and people who have dipped their toes into all of publishing and whatnot have heard people talk about like, well, how hard can it be to do, XYZ, just bing, bing, bing. And I
feel you.
That's one mistake that I paid too much attention to one set of proofs rather than the other set of proofs, and it could have cost me thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it sounds a lot. I've been doing a lot of music stuff this week. And it sounds a lot like, because I'm in the music and post-production stuff. It is really tricky because I need, like, when you're doing a song, it has to sound good on your monitors. It has to sound good on your phone, in the car, on my iPad, through my Bluetooth headphones, like basically, and then also through my studio headphones. I basically listen to it, like every song. My wife wonders what I'm doing in here, like for hours. And I'm like, I'm working on a song. It's like, it's just one song. It's a 3-minute song. It's like, but I have to listen to the 3-minute song 8 times to make sure that it all works. And if something doesn't, then I have to adjust it and then listen to it again. And then
8 times
listen to it again. And that's fun.
Website designers will tell you the same thing. It has to look good.
Exactly.
It has to look good on every browser. It has to look good on mobile, on iPads and tablets. And
Exactly. That's why I don't like Android stuff, because like they don't have like a one way to do things. Everybody does stuff a different way. So like every Android device is like immensely different than every other one. I've heard that. That's why a lot of people end up designing apps just for Apple because they have one ecosystem. It's just like, cool,
Yep.
if I make this, it's there, and it might have to work to make it work on 8 different models of phones, as opposed to the hundreds and hundreds of different models of phones when you're dealing with an Android device. So I actually just watched a whole thing about like why people choose to do that, and why the stores for Apple are just way more full of cool things than the Android ones, and it's because there's more money in it and it can be more stable, which is just
Well,
interesting.
yeah, and people might argue, well, isn't there more money if you get it out to more people and more different types of devices? But then if you're putting, if the time that you spend getting it into Android form for all those different possible iterations of Android devices, like you could spend too much time that now your profit margin per hour spent, comparing like, apps purchased versus hours you spent to do it isn't worth it anymore.
Well, there's also the other thing. This was also, again, I watched a whole thing on it. Is that the mindset of the Google Play Store versus the Apple Store? People don't spend as much. So, if you release something on Apple, it might have like a quarter of the number of people actually buying. But like, I think the App Store sold like 3 times as much, like in terms of like money, like sold more, even though there's like multiples in the dozens more people over on Android. They actually make more money on Apple from fewer people. So, and it's
Sure.
just because of the mindset. Like when you're on an Apple thing, you're like, oh, I got to spend some money to get a good app. On a Google Play, it's like, which one can I find for the cheapest?
Yeah.
So that's neither here nor there. I guess we should probably talk more game stuff. Like, not that we don't devolve into other topics, but I probably shouldn't try to push it so fast. I would say that for me, I've been lucky that I haven't had any crazy publishing issues, and the few times that I've done offset printing, I've just gotten very lucky, and it just came out great. So like, so I don't have any terrible stories there, but I will say that like when I was playtesting my very first game, API, the first edition of API, I remember, and this is something about playtesting, when the more you are in the industry and you have a name and all that stuff, like I could put out a thing like, I have a new game, does anybody want to playtest it? I'll get a handful of people at least that'll be like, yeah, I want to play it, let's do it. But when you're first starting off, it's hard to find people to play test. So I used to do all my own play testing, and I used to go to my local game shop, and it was called what was it called? Armada Games. I don't really go there anymore, but isn't the local game shop here. And I remember I went and I had a system in that game. This is the original one where you had like stamina, which was like you can stay in the fight sort of thing. And then you had, well, it was basically stamina. So what was ending up happening was whenever you would fight or move something, there was like a ticker which would tell you when your next turn would come, but then you would have to expend some stamina based on what you were doing. And I remember when I first ran it, and I remember I was so happy with this first. I was like, oh, it's so ready for play tests. This is going to be amazing. And I was like, it's perfectly written and everything. And then I brought it, and the first group that I had, I even was just like, I'm just going to hand you this, because I had always heard that blind, testing was good. So I was like, here, I'm just going to hand this to you. And here's 2 sample characters, run a fight, following these rules. And I remember too, they like called me over and they were just like, hey, like we haven't finished the first round and we're both out of stamina already. And I'm like, oh, and it's just like, well, does it recover or anything? And I'm like, no. And they're like, so what do we do? I'm like, I don't know, just ignore it, but keep track of how low below 0 you're going. And let me know. And it turned out that like everything was just way too expensive. Like everything was like, oh, it's like 2 stamina, 3 stamina, 5 stamina. And I'm like, in a fight where you only start off with like, say 12, like the fight went really fast. because everybody was like, oh, I just can't fight anymore. So I mean, honestly, that was probably one of the, and it wasn't like I haven't made worse mistakes since then, but it's more just like that was the first one I made, and it was in such a public forum that like I'm like, yeah, man, I'm like designing games. I'm a great game designer. Here, try this game. You're gonna love it. Yeah, we can't really play the game because it's designed so poorly. And it's like, oh, well, I don't know what to tell you then. So maybe I'm not as good as I said I was. But luckily, I definitely, the first edition ended up with stamina as well. And it was cool because the stamina was used also to like fuel magic and stuff, because it was like you had to sacrifice physicality to, for the magic to take place, like, almost like you were, sacrificing a part of yourself every time. So it was fun. I enjoyed the system. In second edition, I did away with it because it didn't fit anymore in second edition. But I still stand by stamina in first edition. I think it fit that very well, but not so much in second edition when I like revamped everything. So yeah, so there you go. But yeah, I've been lucky enough that I have not had any printer issues. I've had more shipping issues than anything, where I'll be like,
Sure.
I paid for all of these books to get shipped, and it's just like, oh yeah, half of them ended up getting just totally shredded. But in those cases, there was shipping insurance, so I would call and say, hey, those need to get replaced, and then the printer wasn't happy about it, but they were like, yeah, I guess we'll do it, because you had the, that's what we're supposed to do. And I never really got any pushback or anything. I've been lucky in that respect. That like most, I feel really bad too. I feel like I have lived a very charmed life in the gaming community, because every time somebody talks about something bad that's happened, I'm like, really? That's never happened to me. And that's my normal like stance on most things. It's just like, man, I've dealt with this, and I'm like, wow, that's so interesting because I've never had that experience. So I just get to basically sit around and listen to everybody else tell me how hard it is and how bad it is and all that stuff. And I'm like, I've not experienced that. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm listening and I'm an ear, and I'm here to support you and whatnot. But like, man, I've just had a completely different experience from everybody else in the gaming. It's just pretty interesting. I don't know. It's weird.
Well, yeah. I mean, some people have like, maybe most of your experiences are like the interesting things happened in playtesting or something. They didn't happen in something that cost you money. They happened
Right.
in something that cost you time.
Yes.
Which makes for that's a completely different mindset. That's a completely different feeling about everything. Like you can have things cost yourself time all day long, like just up and down every year or something, like, oh man, this took longer to get finished than I thought it was, or I had to completely revamp this or that. And you feel okay about that because it's all just in service to the art that you're creating.
Right.
In that early design period of it. Whereas like when it starts to cost you money, that's when it starts to sting, really sting. And I'm sure
think
there's
that might be why I've not experienced that, because I don't let it get to that. I don't let it get to that point. Like I'm way more interested in throwing time at that sort of thing. Which is actually the opposite of everything else in my life, where like I have like local kids coming by to build my shed in the back, and I'm like, I'll totally pay you for doing this because my time, I don't want to do that. Like that's not where I want to devote my time. But when it comes to game design, like, oh yeah, I'll throw all the time in the world at that. Like what? I could totally do that. That's fun stuff to do. But if it's something I don't want to do, I am more than happy to throw money at it. Even if it costs me more in the end than it would have if I had just done it myself. But no, oh my gosh, no, thank you. I don't want to build a shed. It's crazy. Who builds sheds? It's silly.
I mean, in the oh my god, it occurred to me a little like just recently that in the nearly 5 years that I've been doing this,
Wow, it's been that long,
with
huh?
Nerd Burger Games, this is year 5. Like if I go by the publishing of Murders and Acquisitions, that's later this year. I've only had one instance where the snafu was potentially like a big money kind of thing. There's been little things here and there where I've found myself, having to pay a little bit more doing another proof copy because we goofed up something stupid or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is the only one that's been like, oh my God, like this could have been like a significant expense.
Yeah, and luckily you were able to avert it. So,
I got lucky.
Like that's really, really good.
I'm fully aware. I got lucky.
Yeah. Well, you got the bureaucracy of it all was what saved you in the end. Because normally I'd argue. I'd be like, well, how come just what I said, it didn't change the printing. I just said I wanted fewer of them. That doesn't change anything. Make the damn plates and do the thing. So just wanting less of them, it shouldn't make any difference in this. But it's the bureaucracy of it. It's like, well, you changed the order at all. So now we have to adjust for that.
We changed the order. It slowed down. I mean, like in the time that my job was on delay when I was discussing changing the possibility of reducing my order, other jobs got in front of me.
Yeah.
And some of those jobs might have been really big jobs that were going to really tie up the printer, the actual printing presses for an extended period of time. And so that's why even when my job went forward, it didn't, like when I said we're a go at the lesser amount, they didn't start making plates that afternoon.
Right.
Because my print,
because it's
not necessarily.
Like the difference between an order of 1,000 and an order of 500 is you typing 500 or 1000, and everything else stays exactly the same in the end. Like you're still making the same plates, and it's going to run the same. You're just going to print half as many.
Yeah, it's a question of how their process works and whether or not, like, okay, did the job that jumped in front of me, was that a 10,000 print job?
Right.
Like all of a sudden that's like, okay, now I'm just going to have to sit and wait because they're not going to have access to the printing press because this press is going to be full up for however long it takes to print 10,000 books.
Yeah.
As opposed to my measly 600. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't
know. I just got lucky. I am fully aware that I screwed up and I got lucky.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So yeah. I wish I had more terrifying stories. I was just very excited to hear yours to be quite honest. I was like, yeah, let's make that the topic because I wanted to hear everything that was happening. I think right now our biggest thing is like with O-Run, we finally have the PDF ready and we sent it out to backers. The conversation that me and Misha and Jerry are having right now with O-Run is like, where do we want to get it printed? Because we got some quotes a while ago, but they're old by now, and like the companies are just like, we asked for quotes and it's taking weeks to get even stuff back, but we didn't want to ask ahead of time before everything was done. But like now it's like done, and we're still trying to weigh whether we want to do overseas or US or whatever, because of shipping and customs and delays and all that stuff. So, we're still, balancing all of that, but it's going to be.
And it's not just one of you making the decision.
Yes, exactly.
And that always, like, you have to come to a fair and, you got to come to a consensus. You got to get everybody on board. So
although I'm pretty flexible on it. Like, I'm like, look, the basically printing it overseas versus printing it here is like, based on old quotes is like the difference of about $3 to $4 per book. And I'm like, so the question is it worth $3 to $4 per book for us to not deal with customs and stuff like that? Because it's
and overseas. Well, I mean, yeah, and overseas shipping gets worked in there too.
Overseas shipping and overseas delays and all that stuff. So is it worth $3 to $4 per book for us to do that? And that's the decision that we have to still make. Like, we still haven't made it because we're still waiting for quotes back from everybody. So,
there's a lesson for tales from publishing is like sometimes you can only move as fast as the print house gets you quotes back.
Sadly,
or gets information, gets other things for you to make selections. You got to make selection on your stitching. There's a technical term for it. I can't think about what it is, but like
I know what you meant.
What the end, like the end when you're looking at your book, if you look down the spine, the end of the stitching has a color, and you can pick different colors for that that it'll match.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. That
You know,
stuff.
and
Oh, wow.
if you're doing end pages and you want, if they've got selections of different colors for your end pages, and whether you're gonna, like there's all sorts of like those little things that you can make.
Yeah.
And like if you're waiting for them to like get you the PDF of all the colors,
Oh yeah.
like, okay, well now I can't. You might have pages stacked up with covers sitting there, and they can't bindery it. They can't put it into bindery because they don't know how they're going to stitch it together yet.
Yep, because you haven't selected yet.
And
No,
the rep,
I'm fully used.
and the rep hasn't gotten back to you because the rep is putting out that Campbell guy's fire.
Yep.
that Craig guy who's flipping out.
But we are very happy with the final product of O-Run, and
excellent.
What we're doing is we're holding off on making the PDF public. So right now, just backers have it, which means the backers will have it for at least a few weeks while we're trying to get quotes for the print before everyone else has access to it, which is nice. Normally, like for backers of my normal things, it's just like you might get it a couple of days before, but like I need to sell this thing. But I'm also super impatient when it comes to that sort of thing. Like I hate having things and not releasing them. That's why my release schedules are so weird, because I'll spend a bunch of time and I'll create a lot of things. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just going to push it all out at the same time. Like, I don't care. Like, it's done. Like, why would I wait for this? Oh, for marketing reasons and for timing and for being smart. No, Eloy doesn't like to be smart. I don't just get it out there. Like, that's, people want the thing. Just give it to them. But so in that case, it's actually really good that I'm not the only one making any of these decisions. Because I trust Jerry and Misha to make smarter decisions than Eloy does.
Oh boy. Do you want to hear the tale of Baba Yaga's dancing word count?
Well, we talked a little bit about Baba Yaga before. Tell me, though.
Did we talk about when I wrote Baba Yaga's dancing hut?
Yeah. We talked about that last time.
Okay. Never mind then.
Oh, okay. I mean, we were talking about it in the context of like being able to affect a world and stuff like that. But
right, okay.
The word count issue.
Oh well, here's the kind of the quick rundown of what happened with that. Baba Yaga's dancing hut, prior to me designing my own games, was the largest freelance job that I did.
Ooh. Okay.
It was the largest at the time, and it continued to be the largest. It's 55 pages in a PDF. This is when Dragon, during 4th edition of D&D, when Dragon and Dungeon were both online, had first moved to online. And I was freelancing a bit, like a fair bit for Dragon and Dungeon online. And I was, putting stuff to the slush pile, throwing pitches out like all the time. I was doing like, 10 pitches a month. And I wasn't getting very many accepted because I pitched weird stuff. I once got told by Chris Perkins, I pitched an idea for a chef, the characters running into a chef who made dishes out of monster parts, like the really weird stuff, like beholder stuff and all that, and that if you would eat it, it would cause weird things to happen to you, like mutations and weird powers and things that you would get. And he described it as not something we're interested in, also kind of gross. Which I thought was funny. I think I wasn't very good at pitching for D&D because I like to push the boundaries, and at the time they were, the D&D has a very specific, like, this is what D&D is, right? Anyway, which is the great thing about doing your own thing, because you can make it whatever you want it to be. But what happened was during this period, they contacted a bunch of their regular freelancers and gave them a list, and they basically pitched to us. Here's a list of ideas we want that are potentially good for the magazines. Are there any that you are interested in doing? And you would pick a few and put them in order of like which you were most interested in. And one of them was to do an adventure write-up of Baba Yaga's dancing hut, specifically as a reimagining of an earlier Dragon magazine version of Baba Yaga's dancing hut. That was, let's see if I can find it here. Where was it? Was the one that was written in 1984, written by Roger E. Moore for Dragon magazine. He did a Baba Yaga's dancing hut, and the hut is got 48 rooms in it.
Oh, wow.
It's modeled on a tesseract, which is like a fourth dimensional cube, or a hypercube, as some will call it. So you had all these rooms that all interconnected in different ways, and it was like, like the geometry made no sense. Like it was theoretical. So
Right.
I studied tesseracts in the process of this, and they wanted to do this thing, and one of the ideas they had, it was pitched as like a 20,000 word adventure, and I was like, that sounds like a lot of fun. So I put my name in for it. I got it. But when they gave it back to me and gave me the go ahead on it, it was 15,000 words. I was like, well, I was hoping 20,000 because I wanted to challenge myself with something big. That was kind of the point. So I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I wrote an outline, got it approved, started writing, and got partway into it. And I thought I looked at what I was doing, and I was like, there's no way in hell this fits in 15,000 words. And I sent an email to Chris Perkins, and I said, okay, I've got, I'm this many rooms in, and right now my average room is this length. There's going to be, there's the stuff up front, like finding the hut, getting inside, all that kind of stuff that you got to deal with. And then every room gets a write up. And there's I'll be doing a few monster designs, but mostly we're just throwing monsters in from the monster manuals. But it's still the rooms. There's 48 rooms. It's going to take a lot of words. I don't think 15,000 words is going to cut it. He said, okay, fine, make it 20,000. He just came back with an email, just like, boom. That's the beauty of doing a virtual magazine as opposed to a physical magazine.
Right.
If this had been a page turning physical paper magazine, nope, 15,000 words is what you get.
That's what you get.
So boom, 20,000 words. So I continue writing. And I get further into it, and I'm like, there's no way in hell this is going to fit in 20,000 words. So I sent basically the same email and said, okay, this is how many rooms I have. This is the average length of the room, blah, 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 blah. And Chris Perkins wrote back and said, okay, make it 23,000 words. And that happened 2 more times until it became 30,000 words.
Wow.
When I wrote the whole thing, it came in around 30,000 words. That was my word count. And it worked out nicely where I was able to send it off I wrote the whole thing in like a month of like evenings, which was a lot of writing for me at the time while working a full-time job.
Oh yeah.
Evenings and weekends. And I play tested it a little bit myself, and I was going out to visit some friends in Seattle. And so I sent it to Chris. I went out there, visited the friends. I met with Chris face to face. We sat down and talked some stuff out rather than having like a 30 email conversation. And then I made some adjustments, and then it went back to them for developmental editing and everything. And then Chris came back to me and said, we could really use some tactics for some of these rooms, like describing, we've got multiple monsters of different roles and types. Like, what do the monsters do when they get into a fight? And so I wrote another 1,000 words of tactics.
Nice.
And then if you go through and you actually tally up the word count, if you were just, actually like select all of the words in the pages, they did quite a bit of trimming and developmental editing and kind of tweak stuff, but it's mostly what was there. So it was a 20,000 word freelance project that became a 15, that became a 20, that became a 23, that became a 26, that became a 30, that became a 31. And I got paid for every word.
And then it got dropped back down to like,
and then it got cut back down to whatever it ended up being, like 26,000 or something like that. Once they trimmed a whole bunch of stuff up.
I had an interesting,
which never happened. Every other freelance project I worked on, it was like, here's your word count, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
They wanted to reimagine this specific thing, and this specific thing was really long.
Well, and that can happen, like you said, when it's a digital thing.
Yeah.
If it's a digital only thing, then you don't have those limitations. But obviously, if it's in person, you have to write to spec. I had an interesting thing with Onyx Path, because I got to write for the Changeling the Lost is one of my favorite RPGs from them. Changeling the Lost was so good. So when they were trying to do second edition, I was like, ooh, I want to write for second edition. So I emailed the developer, and I'm like, can I write for second edition? And they're like, yeah, you can totally write for second edition. I was like, yay. I was like, that's all it takes is just sending an email. Yay. That's awesome. So I was added to the groups and had lots of discussions with the other writers and stuff. And, I wrote up my thing. I got my assignments. I got my thing. I sent it in, and then I never heard anything. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's fine. So I was like, well, I guess maybe I'll hear back and I'll just check in every so often. And I would check in every so often and I really wouldn't hear anything back. And then I heard that second edition was like about to come out. And I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. Cause I was like, are you guys like, how is it about to come out? Because I didn't even get any notes back or anything. I didn't get any red lines or anything. Like, was it that good? Are you guys literally just going to just take everything I wrote and just use it as is? That's amazing. I'm the best writer ever. They're like, no, actually the old developer, like stepped down and handed it off to another developer.
Oh, been there.
And I'm like, okay, well, did you get my stuff? And they're like, no, we had already hired somebody else to write that. And I'm like, well, but this is what I wrote. And I sent it to them. I'm like, I got hired, to write this. Here it is. And they're like, wow, this stuff is pretty good, but we already now have it represented in the book. We don't need your writing. So they paid me for it, which was nice. But my name is in the credits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they even added my name in the credits, even though none of my actual word count ended up in the book.
You beat me on that. I got something similar happened to me, but I didn't. There's no credits involved.
It was nice of them, and honestly, I liked what I wrote. It would have been nice. Now they did bring me back to write. I wrote like the Changeling stuff for like another book, which was nice. So I got to take my knowledge of the game and use it not in the core book, but in a different side book. So it was nice. I got to write the directional changelings, the ones that aren't about seasons. They're about like the Asian directional like fortunes and stuff. So I got to kind of mix it up a little bit. So that was nice. It was fun. I enjoy writing for Onyx Path. Whenever I do freelancing, they're a good company to write for. They don't pay as much, but it is what it is.
I wrote a piece for Dungeon, which was about this wacky traveling carnival with all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And it was, the idea was accepted under a particular editor of the magazine. And I wrote it and I submitted it. And then the editorship changed. The new producer came in. And that producer decided that it was not at all what they thought it should be. It didn't really, it wasn't evocative. They didn't like it. They just thought it was like, it's not, we don't want to put this in the magazine. And it was just a difference in opinion between two producers. But I had finished it and fulfilled my contract, so I got paid.
Yeah.
It just never saw the light of day. They took the thing, they put it on a shelf somewhere on some digital shelf somewhere, and it's
yeah. I hate it when that happens, though.
There's a part of me that kind of wishes I hadn't. Like at the time, it was great. I could use the money, but like now, I'm like I find myself thinking like that thing's no one's ever going to get to do that. I'm never going to get a chance to kind of tweak that. Like I got paid to write it. It's done, but now they own it. So
yeah,
I can't. I could still do a carnival and I could do something like it, but I couldn't like have anything be too similar because I've already done that and it's not mine anymore.
Yeah. It honestly, it's so interesting because taste and what you want to print and stuff, it can change. So what ended up happening is I started working on my Sinister Beast game like years ago, like maybe 5, maybe 6 years ago, I started working on it. But for me, whenever I start working on a game, I start to try and look for the right art style that I want because it inspires me and like gets me to work better on it. As soon as I have like artistic expression and like I understand what it's all going to look like in my brain, then it makes sense to me and it excites me and it lets me finish it. So, but I started it a while back and I actually found a really good like artist for it. And then all of a sudden, like he had some issues in his life and he was just like, I can't take this job. And I was like, well, crap. So I started looking for other artists and I've literally paid 7, possibly 8 different artists because I like pay them. And I'm just like, here's the write-up that I want. And I need it to look like this. And I need it to look like this. And I've been trying out so many different artists, trying to find the exact right style that I want, because I want it to have a certain look to it. And I only just recently found a really great artist. So, after 5 years of looking, somebody who actually kind of gets the style and the look that I'm looking for. But that's honestly, for me, that's a huge, horrifying, terrifying story when it comes to publishing, because when you have a really good book, like a core book has like a art budget of probably in the thousands. Like, I think my cheapest one that I've ever done for a core book was like maybe 3,000, and that's because I was kind of skimping and stuff on like lots of original art. But like I think Ninja Crusade was closer to about 5,000 in terms of art. But here's the thing. I've spent easily 1,000 to 1,500 on just trying to find the right art. It's like, and it just sucks because, I mean, it's spread out over time, so it's not like I took a big hit all at once or anything. But definitely, like, it's kind of like what I said earlier with you, like, you care that much about how it looks that you're willing to spend the money.
I
don't normally do that, but for this game, it has to look a certain way or I'm not going to make it. So
I was just about to call you out on that because you gave me
Yep.
a little bit of a hard time caring so much about whether or not the book looks warm.
Yeah.
And
less of a hard time.
You're in the same. Yeah, I understand, but you're like, you kind of made the comment was that like, good for you caring that much, but it looks like you don't know if you would do it for that particular issue, but for like the specific art style that will make this game come to life, that will help to inspire you to finish and publish the game. You care.
Exactly.
You care to the tune of $1,500.
Yeah. You have to care at least a little bit. Otherwise, what are you doing? But
yeah. But there is definitely, when it comes to some stuff, there's definitely levels of caring. Like there's some stuff that goes into the game books that I care about more than I care about other things that go into a game book.
Yeah, exactly. Art for me is a big deal, because as much as, the writing is great and mechanics work in the game and all that stuff, but like if the art isn't right, then nobody will even pick up the book, so like it has to, not even just the cover art, but like I have literally picked up books that had amazing cover art. And if I open up the book and the art inside is terrible, I put the book down. Like it has to be consistent. It has to look good. And there have been a few games where, you'll get really like, what was it? It was Nobilis. It was like Nobilis 3rd edition or something like that, where like the cover was like this gorgeous art. And then the inside was like this like terrible, cheap anime art. And it was just like, why is there this, disparity between styles and feel and like everything? And I'm just like, they don't mix. So like, what are you doing, publishers? So, not to call them out specifically, but just that 3rd edition of that book was it was striking to me. And because the 1st and the 2nd editions of that book were just, again, so gorgeous. Oh my God. I never even played the game Nobilis, but I read the books and I looked through the books just because everything just looked so nice.
Yeah, and it's not to say that like there's things that go into the game book that I don't care about. I'm just saying that there's certain things that I will certainly go the extra mile for. Like I was literally willing to spend a chunk of money to make sure that this book looked warmer and more fairy tale like, because that's what I envisioned for the game. And I think that that's what I owe to the backers and later purchases and everything. Yes, but also I owe it to the other members on the team who created the great artwork and the graphic design that makes it look so wonderful. Yes. And if there's one thing that's like, it's a little off, and the thing about it is, it's not one thing that's a little off on like an illustration or on a title. It's going to be a little thing that's off on every page.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, and it's just one more example. I remember there was a book. It was a Dark Ages vampire book, and I don't remember which one it was, but it was it was one of the ones with like the meta plot. because it when you go into the back of the book, it like had like signature characters like written up and statted
Sure.
and stuff like that. And I remember because if you read the description of this character, it was like this skinny, like shy, shy guy who's like mostly slinks in the shadows and all that stuff. But his picture was like a Viking warrior. And I remember just like, whoa, just like the art direction here was like the art director was mad at somebody or was just not doing his job or something to that effect, because that is not what the writer wrote. And then like, I get it, right? Like sometimes the art director is like, well, this is what this guy's really good at. This artist, I shouldn't say guy, but this is what this artist is really good at. I really wanted to have a Viking piece in here. And I'd be out, if I was me as a developer, I would have been like, well, that's fine, but now we need to change the description in the book. But they did not do that. They did not change the art. They did not change the description. So it was very jarring for like, I guess me, probably nobody else, and probably nobody else cared.
Oh, there's a handful of people who did. Every little goofy thing that doesn't quite jive for somebody. It's subjective. It's all like some people will look at that and they won't give it two craps, right?
Yeah.
And some people will look at something and be like, "This is just weird. There's something really wrong here." And some people will notice it and be like, "Oh, okay, well, whatever. It's not that big of a deal." So I'm, I hope that like the errors that people find in my books, people mostly look at it and go, oh, okay, well, there's a typo. They goofed something. Or, there's a description that here and a thing here that don't quite mesh because it got missed in development. And because that can happen.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. That can definitely happen. All right. But I think this was a fairly good discussion about horrifying things in publishing and design. Hopefully everybody else who was watching this, we actually had quite a few people show up this week, which was nice.
Woo-hoo.
We had like in different channels too. We had like 3 or 4 people over on my YouTube channel. We had like 5 or so people over on Twitch. So I mean, it's looking really good.
So and this will go up on both of our YouTube channels afterwards too. So I think I went looking. I see your YouTube channel, your videos get more views than mine do, but I do get some views. So
hey, and the views that mine do get there, it's still small, but it's good that people are watching at least. But yeah, so I'm gonna say good night. I'm gonna go eat some dinner. So good talking with you, Craig, and goodbye to everybody who was watching.
Bye, everybody. Talk to you in 2 weeks, Eloy.
2 weeks, definitely.